Okay, Chapter 3, Flood Tale. Over the sea now called Bassa Brimall came a far-ranging race of Crocaxus, the motherland where Gatuma ruled, where sky-reaching mountains rise out of a wide green dark soil plain. They were horse fighters, known among themselves as the Wildland Cultivators, and they landed at the place before times called Haltraith, in the land of the horse folk now held by Engling. But they built the wood-walled town called Hovenley in the New Tongue, near where the great Sea King sleeps beneath his mound. They took their land from the herd-keeping Frolga and ranged wide from shore to shore, renaming the water-encircled land the honey-laden isle, for never before had they seen honey in such quantities since leaving their own land. There were folk here before the fleet-footed Frolga, but they were magic-dealing dwarves living in holes sunk in the ground, covered over with wicker and earth. It is said they knew and understood the speech of all wild creatures and often talked with them as brothers. They were friendly and frolicsome, and before them only they bowed Yoshan roamed the land. There's a lot of names in this one. In the days when the wildland cultivators came and swallowed up the Frolja, there were bears, wolves, wild cattle, boars, orcs, deer, elk, lion cats, man-eating water lizards, and beast-eaters that dwelt in lakes aplenty. The Frolja were not small, but lacked fighting skill. They were spearmen and without bows, but skillful stone slingers. Behind the wildland cultivators came the Uxening, but being boatless, few came to this green land, most turning southward to Amorica. Those who came were workers in wood and metal, and it was they who built Nahilin, which stood even in the generation of our grandfathers' fathers, in the generation when it's not the Holy Bible with the names, it's the Kolbrin Bible with the names, all completely different. Glenepton as king of the wildland cultivators. A north-spawned horde came upon the flatlands led by Belladon the Thrumanchind, who gained kingship over the land once called Kenningwed. Colwadar, the son of Glenepton, married a daughter of Belladon, and Friwill, son of Belladon, married a daughter of Glenepton, and there was peace. It was in the generation of their sons that Benlanda, the son of Bamlod, king of Parsis, took the land, and all Britain moved southward. The southward moving folk established the places of their responsive gods, where once other gods had been hallowed, and they took the place of Madrad. They took the lands of the cattle-herding Basgala and the sea-trading Tanning, and out in the sky-wide Senmag, they built the great hall of Cark-Agile, with material carried from the land of illusion during the cold half of the year. In their generation, people of this blood, the black-banded Kelglane, built the wooded town of Morolivin, which stood until the coming of the long-sworded Hellwarren. Its burning was a vile act of spite following their bitter defeat at the harsh battle of Belshamir, when King Fadlimid was slain and honorably buried at Cumbergills by the British battle chiefs. It was the wildland cultivators who gave the flood tale to our house-building forebears, but the generation of its happening is lost. In those days, men were inclined to the ways of peace, and harvest had followed winter without change. But it came about that looking up into the darkling night sky, they saw a strangely formed moon chariot overhead. It passed away into the rosy dawning of a newborn day. But then at night end of the sky roof appeared the dread figure of Awak Ored, revealing itself to the eyes of wandering men. It crawled out into the brightness. The foul breath of the nightcomer, newly sprung from the dark depths of its unearthly lair, spread across the brightening face of heaven like an evil gray veil, and even the ever fearless sun withdrew to gird himself in red war armor. The fast-beating hearts of men shriveled with despair at the fearsome sight, then rose while their throats responded with glad cries as the moon chariot came back over the dim horizon. There, riding the battle bar, flaming sword held high, was the bright beloved figure of Lithalun, her fair hair strung out behind as she flew towards the hell figure. They met in an awful hell-echoing clash with the noise of 10,000 rolling thunders, and men bold enough to look were stricken with blindness, and uncovered ears were deafened forever. Cold moon tears were shed by the fang and claw-torn champion of mankind, while the hellish Awamkor drooled white cinders, which, if they touched the skins of men below, raised evil wheels. I'm just thinking about like the phoenix. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it. The unearthly foemen fell apart and hurled great self-created rocks at each other, and onlookers below dashed for protective shelter as they howled down out of the sky above. The very earth, herself immovable, was sickened with fear, and her bowels became loosened with dread. Her belly trembled before the awful sight. Men, looking anxiously to their Lord the sun, were dismayed to see his constant change of war garb, from red to blue, then to yellow, then green, then brown. Good Mother Earth opened her ground mouth and roared ear-cracking protests, while her whole comforting body shook in fear under the gloomy battle shadow form above. Men and beasts were drawn together in a strange brotherhood of fear, none doing harm to another. Those hardly enough to maintain a watch on the combat saw the flashing chariot of Lathalun crush the writhing body of the nightcomer, and then saw its vile black blood, thick like resin, fall upon the thankful bosom of earth. Where the blood fell, flames sprang up. The fear-heated, blood-despoiled body of Mother Earth was cooled and refreshed by the soothing moon tears of Lithalun, shed in womanly relief as she drove back towards her hidden abode in the recesses of heaven. This is the tale of the sky fight, but whether it happened before or after the generation of Hestabel and the flood tale, none now truly knows. It concerns the doom dragon, which has come more than once and will come again, and the last music mankind will hear is the shrill throbbing notes of the doom song. It is the flood tale which has come down to us from the house-building forebears, and it happened in days generations ago when men were widely divided. Out in the gray, watery wilderness, where now the restless western waters roll and heave, there was a place called Terfola, meaning the far western land. It was a country of high mountains, higher by far than those known to us, and low green-grassed hills swept down from them to brown, fertile plowed lands at the sea edge. The folk of Terfola lived in fine houses, though the roofs were flattened, built on cliff shelves and places high above the fertile valley floor. Ladders went up the side of the houses, for they were entered from the roof. The ways of other people are strange. They hunted the roving deer in open-gladded forests where there were no entangling brambles, and fished in quiet pools of gray, splashing rivers. They plucked the plentiful herbs which grew in manifold variety. there being some for every known purpose. It was indeed a land of peace and plenty. The day came, as come it always must, whenever peace and plenty abide, for then earth displays a defect in her instructiveness, when the soothsayers saw kulkers in the night skies. But they were unable to agree among themselves as to what these portended. Some said this, and some said that, while the wiser ones listened, saying nothing. The day came when sleeping earth awoke to a great silence and stillness, not a breath of air stirring the anticipating trees, and no bird left its perch, and every animal remained quiet within its den or in the field. All was hushed and motionless, waiting. Then the soaring sun brought low moaning winds which stirred the trees and grasses to rustling, murmuring life, but all living creatures huddled closer together. The sky roof above was darkened and lowered. It was ruddily hued and gave out sharp, whip-cracking sounds as though it would break asunder, with now and then a shrill, long-drawn cry. In heart-thumping procession, awesomely figured sky gods never before seen passed overhead. Men lived through 2 fear-struck days of dread, not knowing what to expect, during which time there was no true night, one heart-stopping sight after another passing before their horror-filled eyes. When darkness did fall, it was not the restful night darkness which soothes work-weary men, lulling them to revitalizing sleep. No, indeed, it was that form of darkness known as the smothering cloak of Thunor, though never before had it spread so wide. Water streamed downward from the fountain spouts of the sky, not as rain falls, but as water drops out from a pail upturned. Neither was it the pure, true rain. It was tainted with bitter blood from some strange battlefield in the vast sky spaces and contained broken pieces of the rainbow. The sky roof itself was borne down to the very surface of the seething waters, and Mother Earth cowered beneath it, as the shrinking field mouse cowers before the harvester's footfall. A vast black cloud was drawn like a curtain across the sky roof, stretching from horizon to horizon. Rising above it were strange billows of flame and smoke, though what the fire consumed it is not possible to even guess, for all know water does not burn. Then all things ceased movement, all was silent and still and heavy, a heavy, ill-boding, brooding silence, the stillness of heart-hammering fear. Then, with awful suddenness, came a high wave wall of dark, white-fanged edged waters, sweeping swiftly along in fearsome irresistibility. It carried everything before it as a broom sweeps the floor, and accompanying it was a high-born note, long drawn out. Behind it, upon the seething waters, all the fruits of the land, house debris, trees, bloated dead animals, and humans floated upon the wild, wide waters. There was an earthly brown foamy scum which drifted strangely over the surface, not sinking, yet not like oil, for it was gritty. It was irregular and held together. It was like the scum on a fuller's tub. There was a great downpouring of rain which stopped after 7 days. Then the sky roof rose back into its proper place, and our fear-struck forebears saw once more the blessed light of day. They stood upon their drenched mountainsides and saw great trees, and the like of which had never before been seen, float past. Hell-formed hideous things came up from the depths, and swelling burst on the surface. There were fearful sea monsters in great whirlpools, terrible things from unknown places. Wild creatures were washed about, dead or dying. The surging seas tore between the high mountains in great riptides of dirty water. Standing on their hilltops, our frightened forebears saw the swimming house made fast against the sea come up to the land, and out from it came men and beasts from Tyrefolia. Nope, Typhorula. It was built as a house on a high platform standing well above the waters. When they had landed and made themselves secure, the black remnanted strangers built a tall tower of stone upon which they kept an ever burning fire, to honor the gods who brought them to safety. It was said that if the fire ever went out, the waters would rise again. Upon the surging waters was another wave-tossed craft, the great brim coffer of Hestabel, the wild wave wanderer, slayer of Nictoran, the water beast, worker of strange metals, who married Newlin of Warnwilt, daughter of Manwedan, far famed for her beauty. For her hair outdid the yellow of the celadine. Her skin was softer than down and whiter than the mayflower. Her lips were the red of strawberries and her bosom soft as the windflower. She exuded the sweet perfume of new mown hay. The son of Hestabel was the temple protecting three-spirited Essers who made his home in the great oak where to this day he is worshipped as the god of beer and greenery. The tale tellers are not at ease with Hestabel and Essers, whether they were gods or men, but in some men the division is not clear. Perhaps gods are made by the regard of men. There is no chapter 4, ED. I butchered that one, I'm sorry.